Part 42. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 411. Chu Qing Huang sat on the high dragon chair, calmly watching the dancers bowing below the stage, his eyes slightly turned. The ministers held wine cups and watched the dance, and the expressions of several princes were different, and it was unknown what they were thinking. Chu Tianling was followed by a servant, who lowered his eyebrows and eyes and served respectfully. His originally handsome face was covered by dark makeup, which made him look much darker, but he did not attract anyone's attention. The palace banquet was lively and joyful. The ministers enjoyed the singing and dancing while holding wine cups and drinking with their colleagues. Their words were full of praise for His Majesty. No one would find unhappiness at this time. However, when the dance was over and the music slowly ended, one of the dancers suddenly rose from the ground, and her slender figure floated like a fairy to the place where the royal relatives were, so fast that people could not react. The harsh sound of cups colliding rang out. "There's an assassin! Protect the emperor! Protect the emperor! Someone, come! Protect Her Majesty, et." The man came to Chu Tianling like lightning, and took out the inconspicuous servant beside him. With a bang, the servant was thrown to the carpet under the imperial platform, and he saw stars and his internal organs seemed to be displaced. Everyone was stunned by this sudden scene, their faces changed, and they stood up one after another. "What's going on? Who is this man?" Chu Tianling's face changed suddenly. "Your Majesty, this servant is a disguised assassin." The beautiful woman knelt down to report, "His surname is Wei, and he once intended to hire someone to assassinate Your Majesty. After I accidentally learned about this, I had no time to report it, so I could only resort to this last resort. Please ask Your Majesty to make a decision." The disguised servant was Wei Hung. He was worried about Lan Yu, so he decided to go to the palace to see it with his own eyes in case something changed. However, he never expected that Lan Yu would turn against him in public, take his money and betray him. "You." He pointed at Lan Yu tremblingly, shaking with anger, his face livid. "You took my silver ugg." Before he finished speaking, he had already died, and his body fell limply to the side. The air froze. It seemed like a cold current was passing through in the hot summer, and everyone's faces were pale and uneasy. Chu Xuanyi stepped forward to sniff his breath, knelt down and reported, "The thief has died, and I am guilty of negligence. Please punish me, Your Majesty." Chu Qing Huang stood up and walked down the imperial platform without saying a word. His eyes fell on the face of the man who had died. "Bring water." As soon as the order came out, a palace servant immediately brought a basin of water. Chu Qing Huang pointed at Wei Hung, "Splash it on his face." The palace servant obeyed the order. A basin of water was poured down, and the gray and dull makeup on the man's face was washed away, revealing his originally handsome appearance. Everyone was shocked again. "Who is this person? He looks familiar." "He does look familiar, but I haven't seen him before. He looks a bit like Your Majesty." Someone blurted out subconsciously, but before he finished speaking, he suddenly shuddered and knelt on the ground in a hurry, not daring to say anything more. But this sentence attracted the attention of some people. Those who were closer were all royal relatives and important officials in the literature, all of whom were older. At this time, looking at Wei Hung lying on the ground, his appearance was indeed somewhat similar to that of the current queen. Because of this discovery, everyone's heart suddenly raised a storm. Some people turned their heads to look at Chu Tianzheng involuntarily, only to find that this fifth prince really looked nothing like Chu Qing Huang and the other princes. Especially after this period of decline, he really had no temperament at all, and he was so ordinary that he didn't even look like a royal child. Concubine Duan sat at the table with an ugly expression. "Who are you?" someone finally realized, and looked at the woman dressed as a dancer, with a little more vigilance and questioning in his voice. A dancer actually has such amazing skills, and she easily caught an assassin. It's hard not to doubt your identity. As he said, he turned his head and looked at Chu Qinghuang. Your Majesty, please order a thorough investigation of this person's identity. He is mixed in with the dancers, and he must have ulterior motives and ulterior motives. Chu Qinghuang looked at Fu Kang, who was dressed as a dancer, indifferently, and asked, "Who are you? Why don't you tell the truth?" "Your Majesty, I am Fu Kang, the leader of the Dark Pavilion Shadow Guard. I was ordered by your Majesty to monitor the 4 directions. It is my fault for disrupting your Majesty's birthday banquet today." Fu Kang bowed and apologized, "But compared to your Majesty's safety, I had to do it. In addition to this assassin, I also found a major news." Everyone was suddenly shocked when they heard it. The leader of the Dark Pavilion Shadow Guard? In compliance with His Majesty's order to monitor the 4 directions. Does this mean that everything they do is under the surveillance of the Dark Chamber? Chu Qinghuang ignored everyone's thoughts and said calmly, "Speak." Previously, a minister impeached the son of Prince Rong's mansion for staying overnight in a brothel and competing for the most popular flower. "This was actually done by me." Fu Kang bowed his head and reported respectfully, "I pretended to be the son of Prince Rong's mansion because I found the trace of Northern Frontier Emperor Duan Muyu in Lanyu Pavilion. The purpose of pretending to be the son of Chu and competing for the most popular flower was to cover up and better find out Duan Muyu's intentions." The ministers were all shocked by the storm. The Emperor of Northern Frontier, Duan Muyu. He is the ruler of a country. Why did he sneak to Ziki? This man is ambitious, he must have come here with some ulterior motives. Fu Kang said, "I have already found out that the assassin today was instigated and controlled by Duan Muyu. He wants to assassinate your Majesty, plunge Ziki into civil strife, take the opportunity to control Ziki, and make Ziki a vassal state of Northern Frontier from now on. It's so audacious, it's outrageous. This is wishful thinking. Her Majesty is wise and powerful, blessed by heaven, how can he manipulate her at will?" The ministers were immediately filled with righteous indignation, and they all condemned the wolfish ambition of the Emperor of Northern Frontier. Chu Qinghuang said coldly, "Where is Duan Muyu now?" Fu Kang replied, "Lanyu Pavilion." Chu Qinghuang ordered coldly, "Chu Xuanyi, immediately select 2,000 elite troops, surround Lanyu Pavilion, and capture the murderer who killed the king." "I obey your order." Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 412. The originally lively birthday banquet turned into a palace coup to catch the assassin. Others, go back to your seats and sit down. No one is allowed to leave without permission. Chu Qinghuang's eyes turned slightly, and his tone was cold and full of pressure. Wherever his eyes passed, everyone bowed their heads unconsciously. Anyone who dares to do something that shouldn't be done will be regarded as a traitor and killed together. Everyone knelt down and shouted, "Long live our emperor!" Chu Xuanyi ordered his troops to leave the palace. The 9 gates of the palace were tightly sealed, and no one was allowed to enter and leave at will. The originally noisy palace banquet began to be filled with a solemn and murderous atmosphere. Under Chu Qinghuang's order, the ministers stood up and returned to their seats. The fruits and wine in front of them instantly lost their taste, and the dancer's exquisite and graceful figure was no longer attractive. Wei Heng's body was dragged away. Chu Tianling knelt on the spacious red carpet under the imperial platform and replied, "I don't know about this matter. Please investigate it, Your Majesty." When Prince Ling entered the palace, he brought his servant with him, but I don't even know the identity of the servant. I find it hard to believe your explanation. Chu Qinghuang looked at him calmly. Are you trying to tell me that this assassin's disguise skills are so advanced that they are indistinguishable from the real thing? Chu Tianling lowered his eyebrows. There is indeed such a servant in my house. If your majesty doesn't believe it, I will immediately ask someone to bring the servant here. After your majesty sees it, you will know that the assassin's disguise skills are indeed enough to be indistinguishable from the real thing. Why did the assassin choose to pretend to be the servant beside Prince Ling instead of others? I don't know the assassin's mind. Prince Ling replied. If the leader of the Dark Chamber had not killed the assassin, perhaps your majesty could have interrogated him, but now he is dead and there is no evidence. Later, when Emperor Duanmu is arrested and brought to the palace, your majesty might have asked him. Prince Ling seems to be confident. Chu Qinghuang sneered. In that case, I will trust you for now, but please be more cautious in the future, and pay more attention to the degree. The servants in the palace should investigate what they should investigate, and don't let people with ulterior motives sneak in. It's a small matter to ruin Prince Ling's reputation, but if the crime of regicide is framed on Prince Ling, then there is no way to defend himself. In the hot summer, no one knew that Chu Tianling had already broken out in a cold sweat. He even heard something from this warning. Chu Qinghuang already knew about his relationship with Emperor Duanmu. But she seemed to be planning to let him go. Chu Tianling did not dare to be too optimistic, and only responded respectfully, I obey your order. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Chu Tianling knelt quietly, his body motionless, and no one dared to speak without authorization. No one expected what happened today. Her Majesty the Queen did not deliberately make things difficult for Ling Wang in public, but the fact was that the servant brought by Ling Wang did have ulterior motives, which made it difficult for people to believe that Ling Wang was innocent. If someone in his own house had an accident, would Ling Wang, the master, be unaware of it? But Chu Qinghuang's attitude was also a bit puzzling. When encountering such things, regardless of whether it was true or false, the person would be arrested first. If Her Majesty wanted to eliminate dissidents, then Ling Wang would have no excuse, and being punished was also an expected result. But letting people kneel in such a lukewarm way made it impossible for people to guess what she was thinking. Every time at this time, they felt more and more deeply a kind of hesitation and uneasiness that life and death were controlled by the superior. If the king wants the minister to die, the minister must die. If the king wants his subjects to live, they can save their lives even at the gates of hell. The confused dancers filed out. Fu Kang went down to change into a black outfit, and stood silently beside Her Majesty the Queen. Half an hour later, Chu Xuanyi led the imperial guards to bring the northern frontier Emperor Duanmu. Under the gaze of many people, he looked at the woman sitting high. His eyes were fine. Your Majesty, what are you doing? Chu Qinghuang looked at him expressionlessly. My shadow guards found out that you sent assassins to assassinate me. Duanmu's pupils shrank suddenly, and his eyes subconsciously began to search in the crowd. However, even if he searched the whole place, he did not see the person he should see, so he said coldly, Your Majesty, why do you say that? How dare you? King Rong shouted coldly, you dare not kneel in front of the holy carriage, and dare to question Her Majesty the Queen. You are really brave. As soon as the voice fell, Chu Xuanyi raised his foot and kicked, kicking his knee with great force. With a bang, Duanmu's knee hit the ground hard, and his face turned pale in pain. He was furious for a while. How dare you? Do you know who I am? How dare you be so rude to me? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 413. Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows. I really want to know who you are. The banquet was silent, and the ministers couldn't help but murmur in their hearts. Since Her Majesty knew that the other party was the Emperor of Northern Frontier, she still spoke to him in this manner. Isn't she worried about offending Northern Frontier? What if the Emperor of Northern Frontier gets angry and goes back to raise troops to attack and provoke a war between the two countries? With the current national strength and military strength of Ziki, I am afraid it is not a match for Northern Frontier. Duan Muyu looked at Chu Qinghuang coldly, but suddenly fell into a dilemma. If he revealed his identity, the king and ministers of Ziki would have to be polite to him, and even treat him as a guest of honor, but this is very risky. What if Chu Qinghuang is polite to him on the surface, but secretly plots against him? Then in his current situation, I am afraid it will be difficult to resist. But if he doesn't say it, the crime of regicide will be even more difficult to absolve. Why are you silent? Aren't you going to reveal your identity to scare me? Chu Qinghuang said in a light tone. Are you trying to make up an identity temporarily, or do you have any concerns? Duan Muyu frowned, his tone gloomy. Why does Her Majesty think that I am the messenger who killed the monarch? The results found by my shadow guards will not be false, Chu Qinghuang said. It doesn't matter if you don't admit it. I will try all the 18 tortures in the prison of the Ministry of Justice in turn. I believe you will explain everything clearly. You dare? Duan Muyu stood up. The pressure accumulated by his high position for many years made him look pretty good at this time. I am Duan Muyu, the Emperor of Northern Frontier. I came quietly to send a blessing and congratulate Her Majesty on her birthday. I didn't expect to be regarded as an assassin. Her Majesty the Queen of Ziki's hospitality really opened my eyes. After the voice fell, the banquet fell silent instantly. Chu Qinghuang looked at him with a sizing look, doubting his authenticity. Emperor of Northern Frontier. Duan Muyu nodded, yes. When the emperor goes on a diplomatic mission to another country, shouldn't there be a grand ceremony? How did His Majesty the Emperor come to Ziki secretly alone? Chu Qinghuang's expression was slightly indifferent, with a little suspicion. His Majesty the Emperor said he would give me a birthday gift. Could he mean to order an assassin to assassinate me? If so, I am really flattered. Duan Muyu's expression froze, and he said angrily, Your Majesty, please do not frame me. The assassination of Your Majesty has nothing to do with me. Emperor Duan Muyu, please do not get excited, Chu Qinghuang said calmly. I still need to find out who the mastermind behind the scenes is. But the visitor is a guest. Since Emperor Duan Muyu has come to my territory, he is a distinguished guest. As he said, he looked at the guards who were still holding Duan Muyu. Why don't you let the distinguished guest go? Chu Xuanyi lowered his eyebrows and took a step back. The guards who followed him to arrest people instantly let go of Duan Muyu and retreated together. Emperor Duan Muyu, please take a seat. Chu Qinghuang raised her hand. I wonder if His Majesty has any other important business besides congratulating me on my birthday. Duan Muyu's leg hurt so much that he didn't feel anything about the friendly attitude of the Queen of Ziki at this time. He said lightly, nothing else. I don't like to travel with a large group of people. It's too eye-catching. It's safer to travel light and faster. Since he is here to congratulate Her Majesty on her birthday, Emperor Duan Muyu will not come empty-handed. Prince Rong said, I wonder what the gift from Beijiang is. Duan Muyu frowned. Gift? The gift is the head of Her Majesty. Little Ziki dared to ask him to send a gift? Uncle, don't be rude, Chu Qinghuang said lightly. Beijing has been paying tribute to Dongling for many years. I'm afraid the treasury is not abundant. It's normal for Emperor Duan Muyu to be a little tight on money. Don't be too demanding. Duan Muyu's face suddenly became ugly. Prince Rong nodded slowly. Your Majesty is right. Your Majesty is merciful. The situation in the northern border has indeed not been very good in recent years. Chu Xuanyi bowed, but we cannot listen to his one-sided words. Unless he can produce a token to prove his identity, we cannot believe that the assassination has nothing to do with him. That's right. Chu Qinghuang nodded and glanced at Duan Muyu casually. Did Emperor Duanmu bring the token? Duanmu said coldly, are you going to check my identity? Verifying your identity is a necessary procedure, Chu Xuanyi said. If the assassins all make up an identity like you, how can we distinguish the true from the false? If Emperor Duanmu can't produce the token, we can only treat you as an assassin. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 414. Duanmu knew that he couldn't help himself now. It's not that he has never been to Ziki. When he went to Dongling to pay tribute, he also dealt with the envoys of Ziki, although not many times. These people may have forgotten him. Chu Qinghuang had never met him before, so Duanmu didn't know whether Chu Qinghuang really didn't know him or was pretending to be confused with him. At this moment, he must find a way to prove his identity. As the king of a country, he definitely doesn't want to go to jail, and he definitely doesn't want to experience the 18 kinds of torture. If Her Majesty the Queen is pretending to be stupid with him, he has to prove his identity. It is said that those who don't know are not guilty. If he continues to treat him harshly even though he knows his identity, then he will have a legitimate excuse to raise troops to fight in the future. He wants to see if this little girl dares to continue to be so arrogant when the northern Xinjiang Iron Cavalry approaches the city. But Duanmu also had concerns. This time he came in secret, and he didn't bring many guards. Although they were all experts, no matter how powerful they were still outnumbered. What if the little girl Ziki held his token? He has suffered losses before, so now he has learned to be cautious. Emperor Duanmu seems to be deeply concerned. Chu Qinghuang smiled faintly. It doesn't matter, even if you can't take it out for the time being, I will definitely treat you with courtesy. After all, a good relationship between the two countries is something worth looking forward to. Duanmu, since the emperor has come all the way, he will stay in Ziki for a while. I will treat him well and never dare to neglect Emperor Duanmu. Duanmu's heart trembled. Was he going to be placed under house arrest? Northern Xinjiang is busy with government affairs. I cannot stay here for too long. If the king of a country does not return home for a long time, it will definitely cause speculation and uneasiness among the ministers in the DPRK. If this causes a war between the two countries, I am afraid that I, the king, will be guilty. Chu Qinghuang said, I can write a handwritten letter and send it to northern Xinjiang to explain the situation. Duanmu smiled lightly, how dare you trouble Her Majesty the Queen? This matter has been settled. Chu Qinghuang didn't want to listen to his ramblings, so she turned around and ordered, Emperor Duanmu and his father are contemporaries. Since his father abdicated and traveled around the world, in the following days, the emperor will uncle, please treat Emperor Duanmu well for me. King Rong bowed and accepted the order. I obey the order. I will do my best to make Emperor Duanmu feel at home. I can rest assured when your uncle is doing his work. Chu Qinghuang picked up the wine cup and gestured to Duanmu from a distance. Even though Emperor Duanmu didn't send any congratulatory gifts, I have come all the way here, and I still feel deeply for this sincerity. I'll give you a toast. From the moment he stepped into the palace, Duanmu lost his dominant position and had no choice but to obey Chu Qinghuang's arrangements. Regardless of whether this was a decision against his will, he had no room to compete. As for whether he will hold grudges in the future, and whether he will lead his troops to attack Ziki after returning to northern Xinjiang because of this, these are all things for the future. When will it be in the future, who can say for sure? Chu Qinghuang felt that Duanmu had been the emperor for long enough. Her father had abdicated, so there was no reason why northern Xinjiang could not change to another emperor. Such a simple thing, there is no need to think about it at all. After the palace banquet, everyone escorted the queen mother back to the palace and sent concubine Duan out of the palace. The two women were silent from beginning to end, and they still looked worried when they left. Especially Princess Duan, she couldn't help but recall what the official said just now, he looks a bit like His Majesty. Who among the women in the harem doesn't know how to read their words? The ministers stopped talking before they finished speaking, and everyone looked at the shocked expression of the assassin, and the strange eyes when they looked at Tianzheng. It was like thorns piercing into her heart, making her feel like she had been stabbed by a lot of things. He was restless as if he were biting by insects. It seems that some truth that has been sealed for many years is about to be revealed, but it was deeply buried at the critical moment. What is the concubine thinking? Chu Tianzheng walked beside her and noticed concubine Duan's unusual expression. He frowned and said, "Didn't I ask the concubine to talk to Chu Qinghuang before entering the palace? My son doesn't want to. I have nothing to do all day long, but I am allowed to hold an official position. The ministers of the court now see me as if they are seeing nothing, and the children of the aristocratic families do not take me seriously. It is such a useless life to live like this." Concubine Duan turned her head and looked at his face calmly. No matter how she looked, she couldn't find any resemblance to the Supreme Emperor on his face. His face was full of indignation, sorrow, and injustice. The face that used to hurt so much now seemed to have become unfamiliar. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 415. Unlike concubine Duan, who was very preoccupied at this time, Chu Qinghuang was in a particularly comfortable mood. Of course, Fu Kang was in a better mood. 3,000,000 taels of silver were obtained, Wei Hung was dead, and Duan Muyu, who wanted his master's life, was also trapped in Ziki. The next plan would go more smoothly. The only thing he wasn't happy about was that after trapping Duan Muyu, he was about to leave Ziki and go to Yan Kingdom. A cup of tea was placed on the tea table in Chu Qinghuang's hand. Fu Kang knelt down and gently held Chu Qinghuang's hand. "What do you plan to do with Duan Muyu, master?" "Let him stay in Ziki for a while," Chu Qinghuang said. "I won't go back and cause trouble for you." Fu Kang's lips raised slightly. "Does this count as fraud?" "It doesn't count," Chu Qinghuang said. "Duan Muyu came to the door by himself, and you killed Wei Hung. How can it be considered cheating?" Fu Kang hummed. "Let's leave tomorrow." Chu Qinghuang touched his head. "The sooner you complete the task, the sooner you can come back." Fu Kang hummed. "Master, won't you hold King Ling accountable for his crimes? I promised my father before that I would try to save the lives of some of my brothers." Chu Qinghuang leaned on the brocade couch and said in a lazy voice, "Anyway, they can't cause any trouble, as long as they know how to stop in time and curb their ambitions. I'm too lazy to argue with them." Fu Kang lowered his eyebrows. "Master is as kind as a fairy." Chu Qinghuang sneered. "The ministers all think that I am like an evil star, but you are the only one who has always firmly believed that I am a fairy, and you will not say anything against your will." "My subordinates are not telling the truth." Fu Kang frowned. "My subordinates are telling the truth. Those ministers are all blind." Chu Qinghuang was silent for a moment and nodded slowly. "Yes, all the ministers are blind, only Fu Kang has a bright eye like a torch." Fu Kang raised his eyes and stared at Chu Qinghuang with burning eyes. "Master. My subordinate will leave tomorrow." Fu Kang put his arms around Chu Qinghuang's slim waist, his eyes filled with anticipation. "Master, can you kiss me?" Chu Qinghuang refused. "No." Fu Kang's eyes dimmed and he lowered his eyes silently. "I am a girl, so I have to know how to be reserved." Chu Qinghuang said lightly. "Men should be more proactive." "Ah." Fu Kang was stunned and subconsciously looked up at her. When he realized what Chu Qinghuang meant, his eyes instantly brightened. "Master means. That's what you think." Fu Kang coughed lightly and took a deep breath. He felt that his squatting and kneeling posture was a bit inconvenient, so he stood up, put his hands on both sides of Chu Qinghuang's shoulders, bent slightly and lowered his head. The target was exactly Chu Qinghuang's glossy lips. "Master, are you ready?" Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows. "I have nothing to prepare." Ahem. Fu Kang's heart was beating like thunder. He wanted to close his eyes, but he couldn't help but be greedy for Chu Qinghuang's world-famous face. His eyes could not stop looking at her. Then, my subordinates have begun. Do you need me to close my eyes? Supporting the handsome face and blushing, no. No need. Chu Qinghuang hummed, with a bit of a smile in his eyes. Fu Zhu's face turned red again. Master, master, it's better to close your eyes. Chu Qinghuang's eyebrows were raised higher and higher, and she looked intently at someone's face that was about to get angry. She didn't say anything, and closed her eyes cooperatively. The master's eyelashes are thick, long, and curled, so beautiful. The skin is also white and can be broken by blows. Fu Kang admired it carefully for a while, closed his eyes tightly, quickly lowered his head and kissed Chu Qinghuang's lips. Time is frozen. The two of them just locked lips with each other, and the air seemed to be still. Fu Kang quietly opened his eyes, and happened to meet Chu Qinghuang's clean and clear eyes. Their eyes met, and there seemed to be a subtle and embarrassing atmosphere fermenting in the air. Chu Qinghuang reached out and clasped the back of his head, kissed him hard on the lips for a while, then let go and said, "When you come back from Yan Kingdom, I will definitely teach you the ways of the boudoir." Fu Kang pursed his lips and smiled, yes. He was looking forward to that kind of fun, it would be irresistible. But, although my subordinates know nothing, how come my master knows so much when he is only 16 years old, he wondered. After all, the pleasure of the boudoir is not something that can be open to the public for people to observe. Why does the master know better than him? You can read a book, Chu Qinghuang said calmly. There are actually a lot of these books in the palace. When a girl gets married, her mother will secretly stuff 2 of them. In addition, I will be 17 years old after this birthday. If you count in the past, I was almost the same age as you. Isn't it normal to understand? Fu Kang said, oh, that's it? Don't worry, I will teach you well when I have time in the future. Chu Qinghuang raised her hand and pinched his face. I guarantee that you will experience the most wonderful taste in the world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 416. The next morning, when Chu Qinghuang got up to go to court, Fu Kang had already quietly left the palace and rushed out of the city with a few people. The imperial city was on alert all night last night. Because all the masterminds behind the assassination of Her Majesty the Queen had not yet been caught, the Royal Forest Army searched the city, and all 9 gates were heavily guarded. Everyone leaving the city must be interrogated and their identity confirmed before they can be released. Under such intensive patrols and searches, Ange arrested 16 men who were acting suspiciously. Some of these men were pretending to be small traders, some were pretending to be playboys, some were pretending to be jobbers, and some were pretending to be scholars. But without exception, after their identity was exposed, their escape speed was worthy of Qinggong masters, which showed that they were well trained. All 16 people were tied up using the toughest silk ropes in Ange. No matter how high their martial arts skills were, there was no possibility of breaking free. After Chu Qinghuang returned to the imperial study room from court, Chu Xuanyi reported the matter. Your Majesty, please make a decision. Bring them all here, Chu Qinghuang ordered. Invite Duan Muyu here too. Yes. Not long after, Duan Muyu was invited to the imperial study room. When he saw the 16 people pressed outside the imperial study room, his expression changed instantly. Does Emperor Duanmu know these people? Chu Qinghuang glanced at the livid Duanmu and smiled faintly. They behaved suspiciously and acted sneakily. I suspected that they were involved in the plan to assassinate me, so I ordered them to be arrested. I wonder if Emperor Duanmu thinks they look familiar. Duanmu was silent for a moment, Her Majesty the Queen said that they participated in the assassination plan. Is there any evidence? No evidence is needed. Chu Qing Huang looked indifferent. On my territory, their sneaky behavior is very suspicious to me. If I say they are guilty, they are guilty. After a slight pause in her tone, she raised an eyebrow. After all, if the emperor wants to kill people, he can just find any reason. Emperor Duanmu must have killed many people in the years since he took the throne. Duanmu's expression was cold, and he clearly realized that he had miscalculated again this time. Ziki was originally a powerful country, but the civil strife in recent years has emptied Ziki's combat effectiveness. The reason why he chose to come here at this time is because the queen has just ascended the throne, and she is only a teenage girl with yellow hair. There is no regent like dangling around her. Assisted by a strong husband like Wang Ronjiao, several princes were eyeing her throne again. In Duanmu's view, Ziki should have been in chaos, and there were opportunities to take advantage of the chaos. He had no idea that he would fall into the hands of this yellow-haired girl so easily. It was a great disgrace to him. At this moment, he could completely believe that if he did not admit to knowing these 16 people, then this yellow-haired girl would definitely order people to put them all into the sky prison and torture them severely. The only thing he was lucky about now was that there were still some experts staying on standby outside the imperial city, so that the whole army would not be wiped out. But how could the news in the imperial city be conveyed? Duanmu frowned. What is Emperor Duanmu thinking about? Chu Qing Huang put her hands behind her hands and whispered casually, are you thinking carefully about whether you should get to know them or not? Duanmu became angry with embarrassment. Since Her Majesty the Queen has captured them, hasn't it confirmed their relationship with me? Isn't it the behavior of a king to humiliate me like this at this time? I'm just expressing my doubts. Chu Qing Huang's eyes darkened, and his voice was a little colder. Since Emperor Duanmu admits to knowing them, please ask them to stay in the palace to protect His Majesty the Emperor. It's nothing. Try not to leave the palace for important matters, otherwise they may not be so lucky if they are regarded as assassins again. Duanmu heard her threat, and the implication was that he should stop trying to tell the truth. This means that he must be placed under house arrest in Ziki. Her Majesty the Queen has just ascended the throne, and Ziki's national strength is still recovering. There was a sense of oppression in his eyes. If northern Xinjiang and Ziki go to war at this time, what are the chances of Her Majesty the Queen winning? If we fight today, there is no chance of winning at all. Chu Qing Huang said truthfully, if we fight within a month, the victory will be 50-50, if the northern border invades after 3 months, the entire army will be wiped out. It must be northern Xinjiang. Does Emperor Duanmu know why? Duanmu was secretly frightened, but his face remained calm. I'm all ears. If we start a war today, I will have no time to mobilize troops or ask for help. With the current strength of Ziki's iron cavalry, it is indeed no match for northern Xinjiang. Chu Qing Huang said calmly, but I believe that even if Emperor Duanmu has the ability to fly into the sky and escape from the earth, it's impossible to mobilize troops and horses today. Duanmu said nothing. If the war starts in 1 month, I am 50% sure. Chu Qing Huang said, this 50% sure is because my border cavalry do not yet have enough sophisticated weapons and horses. I will equip them in 1 month. Armor, weapons, and horses, even if they don't guarantee complete victory, they can ensure that northern Xinjiang cannot take advantage. Duanmu still didn't speak. If it takes 3 months. Chu Qing Huang clicked his tongue, I have enough time to ask for help and reinforcements to come. By then, I am afraid that the entire army in northern Xinjiang will be annihilated, the country will be destroyed, the family will be destroyed, and all the concubines in His Majesty's harem will be destroyed. Being reduced to a lowly status, it is difficult for them to decide whether they live or die. $window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, Placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 417. Duan Muyu's face turned the color of pig liver in an instant. Everyone knows what will happen to a king who subjugates his country, and even more clearly what will happen to his concubines and daughters. At this time, Chu Qinghuang deliberately mentioned these things, which was undoubtedly an insult to him and planted a thorn in his heart. Not to mention the king of a country, even the head of an ordinary official family cannot take this kind of thing lightly. It is a shame that no man can bear. Emperor Duanmu, please go and rest first. Chu Qinghuang had no intention of saying more to him. I still have many things to approve, so I won't accompany you. With that said, he turned around and entered the imperial study room. As for the 16 masters, even if they are with Duanmu, they are always under the surveillance of the Anj shadow guards. There are people on duty day and night, and the palace is even full of forbidden troops and heavily guarded. Under this situation, if they could still escape, then Chu Qinghuang could only admire their ability. Duanmu stared at Chu Qinghuang's back gloomily, his eyes filled with anger, and he almost wanted to chop the yellow-haired girl alive. How dare a little girl who has not yet been weaned dare to show off her cruelty in front of him? When he returns to northern Xinjiang, he will definitely lead his cavalry to attack Ziki, letting her experience what it means to be a king of subjugation. Full of anger and murderous intent, Duanmu turned around and left, swearing viciously in his heart, thinking of thousands of ways to make her die without a burial place, but he did not expect that the day he stepped into the imperial city of Ziki from the beginning, his career as emperor was destined to end. The hot summer passes quickly. After Fukang left, Chu Qinghuang concentrated on major political affairs. Every day, intelligence from all directions was sent to the black box in the corner of the long case. Few civil and military ministers in the Manchu dynasty knew what was written in the intelligence. In mid-August, the sky collapsed in Wuzhou. The newly promoted champion Chu Suans was ordered to go to Wuzhou to investigate the case and uncovered the local corrupt officials and profiteers who had monopolized the tea industry. The grasshoppers on the vines were tightly tied together from top to bottom, almost forcing the tea farmers to despair. From officials to profiteers, the evidence is conclusive and cannot be denied. The memorial was quickly submitted to the imperial court. After the queen's imperial approval, she issued an edict. The prefect of Wuzhou, Gao Yuan, took advantage of his position to seek personal gain and allowed profiteers to oppress the tea farmers. As a result, tens of thousands of tea farmers in Wuzhou had toiled for years but had no food to eat, and their livelihoods were difficult. Gao Yuan and the profiteers he protected were guilty of serious crimes, and the people would not be angry if they were not killed. The ministers shouted, "Long live! If the local government fails to act, I will root out the government bugs." Chu Qinghuang issued an order, "Pass it to Lu Jun." Lu Jun, the former guard commander of the eldest princess's palace, went up to the palace and knelt down to obey orders. Lu Jun, for the Wuzhou case, take the Royal Forest Army with you. Chu Qinghuang said coldly, order a group of people to be killed in public at Keishikao to show the anger of the people. I obey the order. Lu Jun accepted the order and left. Chu Qinghuang slowly looked around the hall. I know very well that some of you are the shelters of these corrupt officials and profiteers and bullies. As soon as these words were finished, the civil and military officials in the court knelt down in fear. Your Majesty is aware of this. I haven't found out yet, but that doesn't mean I can never find out. Chu Qinghuang paused slightly, and then said coldly, from now on, please stay safe, do your work well, and put the people and the country of Ziki first. I cannot pursue the matter for the time being. My holy emperor, please remember that my bottom line is the millions of people in Ziki. In the next 3 years, I will make the people of Ziki live in a stable life, have enough food and clothing, make the treasury abundant, and make the army strong. Who dares to do this at this time, to hold me back? First consider whether your 9 clans are strong enough to withstand being beheaded in public several times. The civil and military officials said nothing else, and their voices resounded through the sky, "Long live Her Majesty the Queen, long live, long live." There is a black box on my imperial case, and the black box contains information. Chu Ching Huang slowed down her tone. "You adults, if you are dedicated to serving the country, I will see it. If you are dedicated to personal gain, I will also see it. I will continue to monitor your performance in the coming days." The ministers were sweating profusely. "My holy emperor! Long live, long live, long live! Retreat! Congratulations to Her Majesty the Queen! Long live, long live, long live!" In the next 6 months, Her Majesty the Queen would raise the many ills that existed in various parts of Ziki every morning in court. Some bullies bullied the people, some local officials embezzled taxes, some officials and businessmen colluded to monopolize the salt industry, and some profiteers took advantage of natural disasters to drive up food prices. Every time the ministers of the court were frightened after hearing these things, they would even subconsciously glance at the terrible black box after entering the imperial study. Her Majesty the Queen used fierce methods to govern the country with the power of thunder, punished corrupt officials and profiteers, and killed batch after batch of people. At the same time, adjustments were made to the strength and defense of border fortresses, and the soldiers' pay, food, armor, and weapons were greatly improved. Under the high-pressure policy of thunderous means, the atmosphere of the court took on a new look. Young and capable upstarts in the court sprung up like mushrooms after a spring rain to relieve His Majesty's worries and problems. They were full of energy, and one young man after another was promoted to the center of various ministries. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 418. Time flies and half a year has passed. According to statistics from the Ministry of Household Affairs, this year's tax revenue is a full 6 million taels more than last year, which is exciting news. Although Wen Xingyun, the Minister of Household Affairs, had some careful thoughts, under Chu Qinghuang's nose, he didn't dare to do anything he shouldn't have done. Zhong Zongjin came back from Mianbei to report on his duties and gave a detailed report on what happened in the fiefdom. The border passes are now impregnable, and their combat effectiveness has been greatly improved in the past 6 months. They are no longer afraid of anyone's provocation. The border officers and soldiers are convinced of the Commander-in-Chief Kailing. Almost obeyed. Chu Qinghuang said, "Well done." In addition, my subordinates also brought news about the Yan Kingdom. Zhong Zongjin presented a piece of information to the case. His tone was calm as usual. The Yan Kingdom has just recovered a prince who was living abroad and was named the Crown Prince. He is in charge of the political power of Yan Kingdom. By the way, this person is called Fukang. He said this as if he didn't know who Fukang was. Chu Qinghuang glanced at him. The person who holds the power of the Yan Kingdom is Fukang. Now he is called Wei Fukang. He has a given name, which is not bad. Zhong Zongjin coughed lightly. After taking power, he originally wanted to come back to Ziki, but he was left in the Yan Kingdom with a letter. A letter? Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows and felt at ease. He didn't know what mission his father had given Fukang. Northern Xinjiang is now divided into 2 factions. One faction supports the original Emperor Duan Muyu. After learning that Duan Muyu was trapped in Ziki, they fiercely expressed their intention to send troops to attack Ziki and rescue their Emperor. Zongjin said. The other faction, they are eager to support the Crown Prince to ascend the throne and take the opportunity to abdicate Duan Muyu. Their reason is that as long as the Crown Prince ascends the throne, Ziki cannot threaten them with the Emperor's safety and can avoid civil strife in northern Xinjiang. Chu Qinghuang sneered, so the prince's faction wants to abandon the emperor. Zhong Jin nodded, I do have this idea. However, as soon as the prince ascends the throne, he will definitely send troops to attack Ziki under the pretext of saving his father. So your majesty should be prepared for the battle in advance. The war may not be fought, but it is always right to prepare for a rainy day. Chu Qing Huang hummed, starting from today, you will join the household department. Zhong Jin was stunned, me? What? Chu Qing Huang raised her eyes, don't want to. My subordinates don't dare. Zhong Zongjin sighed, it's just that other people enter the officialdom through passing the examination and gaining fame. If my subordinates rashly go to work in the Ministry of Household Affairs, other ministers may have opinions. You assisted Qi Ling in arranging the border officers. You have done a great job. There is nothing wrong with being given an official position. Chu Qing Huang looked down at the information, but you have just come back, so you can take a rest in the past 2 days. Zongjin nodded, yes. When he was retiring, he asked, Hong Yu serves in Kintian prison. My subordinate, go and see him first. Zhong Zongjin smiled, turned, and left. I haven't seen him for a long time, and I miss him. Chu Qing Huang didn't say anything and just let him go. After Zhong Zongjin left, Chu Qing Huang took another letter from Long's case and read it carefully. Fukang would send a letter every month, describing the situation in Yangguo in a few words. As expected, progress was going smoothly. After the king of the Yan kingdom knew Fukang's identity, he simply recognized his son, and despite everyone's objections, resolutely appointed him as his heir apparent. He even only gave him half a month to familiarize himself with court and military affairs, and then handed over the power. The ceremony for handing over power was simple. Several generals in charge of military power in the court followed Fukang's orders from then on. Controlling military power was equivalent to controlling the right to speak. Especially after several important ministers who were fiercely opposed in the court were killed by Fukang on the spot, other ministers became fearful and changed their attitudes. Don't dare to go too far. For Fukang, taking down a mere Yan country is really a piece of cake. But today's letter mentions a person. A girl of 16. Duan Muguiu, the 13th princess of northern Xinjiang. When Fukang mentioned her, he said that the princess would come to Ziki before the end of the year to get married and promote friendly relations with Ziki. Friendly relationship? Chu Qing Huang was thoughtful. In order to seize the western Qi territory, Emperor Duanwu of northern Xinjiang did not hesitate to come to Ziki to assassinate Chu Qing Huang. Now that Duanwu is still trapped in the imperial city, northern Xinjiang has begun to fight for marriage again. A good idea? This really comes up all at once. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 419. When Zhong Jin saw Hong Yu, the 18-year-old boy was sitting cross-legged in front of a hexagram in a daze, his eyes dull, as if someone had taken away his soul. I haven't seen him for more than a year, and that face has obviously lost a bit of the immaturity of a boy, and has gained a bit of the calmness and restraint of a young man. Well, there is also a bit of indifference to fame and fortune. Xiao Yu or Zhong Zongjin waved his hand in front of his eyes. Has your soul left your body? Kurha didn't respond. Zhong Zongjin raised his eyebrows and called out again, Xiao Yu. Why are you dazed in broad daylight? Still no response. Master Shen, please have tea. The tea maid came over, put the tea on the table, blessed herself, turned around and walked out. Zhong Jin glanced at Hong Yu, walked over, picked up the teacup, and sipped lightly, then looked at Hong Yu quietly, wanting to see how long he would be in a daze. Before finishing the cup of tea, the young man whose soul was out of his body finally came back to his senses slowly, resting his chin on his hand, and sighed with melancholy, alas! Heavy and horrifying. The hand holding the teacup couldn't help but tighten. What's wrong? There was no sound in the room for a while. After another moment, The young man sighed quietly, "Oh. Zongjin. The red Luen star is moving." Hong Yu looked at the hexagram and frowned, "Why didn't I see where the red Luen star was moving?" "Red Luen star moving?" Zongjin was surprised, "Who moved the red Luen star?" Hong Yu suddenly turned his head, looked at Zongjin who was speaking, frowned and said, "When did you come back?" Zongjin was speechless for a moment. He was indeed stunned. Alas, Hong Yu held her chin, extremely sad. "Several adults in Kintian prison said that my red Luen star was moving. My father also sent a letter the day before yesterday saying that my red Luen star was moving recently, but I took a look. I can't see any signs." "I see." Zongjin raised his eyebrows. "Isn't it said that fortune tellers can't calculate their own destiny? It's normal that you can't calculate it, but Qin Tianjian's calculation may not be accurate, so you don't need to take it too seriously. If only a few adults from Qin Tianjian calculated this result, I really wouldn't take it seriously, but my father also said so." Hong Yu frowned, "And it's such a coincidence that it happened to be in just these few days, so there is a possibility of mistakes. Sex is almost non-existent." Zongjin frowned and muttered, "I just came back from Mianbei, and you were like a star, Xiao Yuer. You won't always like me secretly, right?" Hong Yu raised his head and looked at him as if he were an idiot. "Is there something wrong with you?" He has no interest in breaking his sleeves with others. "How did you say this?" Zongjin patted his head, "It's not polite." Hong Yu was distressed. "I don't know what kind of red thread Yu Lao has pulled for me, but I mustn't let a tigress come." The corner of Zongjin's mouth twitched. "Since it is Hong Luen who is attracted to her, she must be the woman you are destined for. She should be the one you like, right? How could it be a tigress?" Hong Yu pouted, "Who knows?" Zongjin looked at the secret room. "How are you doing lately? Isn't it boring to stay with a group of old men from Kintian prison all day?" "Of course it's boring." Hong Yu clicked her tongue. "I still miss the days when I was in the princess mansion. I could compete for favors every day and wear beautiful clothes. It's not like now, where I look like a fairy all the time." After a pause, "Although those adults call me little fairy every day, and they all look at me with admiration, it is quite a sense of accomplishment, but you think, it would be great if these old men could be replaced by little beauties. So you also want to experience what it feels like to be hugged from both sides." Shen Kongjin nodded slowly. "Xiao Yuer has finally grown up." Hong Yu stood up. "As a normal man, who doesn't like beauties? Don't you?" Before Shen Zongjin could speak, Kurio said, "If you don't like beauties, you're not a normal man." Zongjin choked and looked at him strangely. "I haven't seen you for a while. You have such a bad temper." Hong Yu didn't speak, his brows furrowed slightly, and his expression looked very tangled. "Okay, isn't it just the red Luen star moving? What's the big deal?" Zongjin hooked his neck. "Let's go out and drink. When we're drunk, we won't have time to think so much." Hong Yu shook off his hand. "You can go alone. I have been practicing self-cultivation recently and don't drink alcohol at all." Zongjin looked at him. "What happened?" "I'm very annoyed." Hong Yu looked irritated, turned around and walked out. "I'm still a child. Why did the Hong Luen star move? Why does Yu Lao like to joke so much?" After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 420. From late autumn to winter, the loyal dog that Her Majesty the Queen has been thinking about has finally returned from Yan country. With a murderous and decisive aura, his slender and agile figure is like returning from a bloodbath on the battlefield. Well, it's just that the blood he bathed in is others, and he himself is unscathed, which adds a bit of cold and decisive demeanor. Chu Qinghuang is reviewing memorials in the imperial study. There are more things to do at the end of the year. As a diligent monarch, his daily life is busy, and the memorials on the dragon case are often piled up into several small mountains. Because she has handled more things this year, local officials have been more ruthless. All corrupt officials have been stripped of their official hats, and those who are serious will be beheaded directly at Kashikau for public display. For officials who really work for the people and want to show their ambitions, their good impression of Her Majesty the Queen has naturally increased dramatically. So at the end of the year, memorials from all over the country are flying in like snowflakes, and some officials who are used to flattery will naturally not lag behind. Things just multiplied and became very annoying. Fortunately, she had the help of Chu Suans, Wen Zhan, and Yun Hung, which saved her some energy. When she received the news that Fu Kang had returned, Chu Qinghuang had been reviewing memorials for a long time and had discussed matters with Prince Rong and officials from the Ministry of Personnel, Ministry of Revenue and Ministry of War for an hour. Let's end today's business here. Chu Qinghuang closed the last memorial and put it aside. It's the end of the year. I don't want any more trouble inside and outside the palace. It's better for you all to know what's going on. Everyone agreed and left respectfully. Chu Qinghuang has been on the throne for more than a year. Strictly speaking, she doesn't particularly like to kill people. At first, the ministers in the court were worried all day long and trembling for a long time. Later, they found that the atmosphere in the court was getting better and better. Her Majesty the Queen had a good temper most of the time. As long as no one committed a crime in her hands, she would not take it out on others for no reason. Of course, when corrupt officials and profiteers and bullies oppressed the people in various places, her methods were still cruel and ruthless, and she would not tolerate them, but that was all. As the government affairs were on the right track and the ministers of various departments performed their duties conscientiously, the Empress rarely lost her temper at the morning court, and would no longer threaten them to confiscate their property. However, most people have developed the habit of doing their part well, and they dare not be lazy in the short term. Raising his hand and rubbing his eyebrows, Chu Qinghuang turned his head and looked at the three people beside him. You guys have worked hard during this period, go back and rest early today. Chu Suans, Wen Zhan, and Yun Hung stood up and bowed to leave. Opening the door of the imperial study and walking out, they met Fu Kang's handsome iceberg face that had never changed for thousands of years. The three of them paused slightly, then nodded politely and walked past him calmly. The wedding day of Her Majesty the Queen should not be far away. When Zhan looked at the setting sun and sighed, the fate in this world is really wonderful. Chu Suans glanced at him, Brother Wen, don't you have any idea about marriage? A real man should establish a career before starting a family. I am not in a hurry for the time being. Isn't it better to get married first and then establish a career? With a virtuous wife to take care of the housework at home, you can go home and have someone to ask about your well-being after a hard day outside. I am different from Brother Chu. When Zhan smiled lightly, Brother Chu is the son of the wrong Wangfu. No matter what level of official position he holds, he can marry a beautiful and virtuous lady from a famous family, as long as he likes her. After getting married and having a beautiful wife to accompany him, you can focus on your official career without any worries. Chu Suans was silent. He was such a smart man that he understood what he meant at once and nodded slowly. Brother Wen's idea is reasonable. I am just a bastard of the Wen family. I have no advantage in choosing a wife. Of course, I don't have much say. When Zhan sighed lightly, if I marry now, the other party's background doesn't matter, but if I can't choose one I like, it will cause a lifetime of regret. Brother Wen, do you have a favorite woman? I haven't met one yet. The marriage of a bastard is in the hands of the stepmother. This is indeed a bit helpless. If you resist, you will be accused of treason, which will do more harm than good to your career. Yes, when Zhan nodded, my mother did have the intention to arrange a marriage for me before, but I refused on the grounds that I am the queen's person. If I bring up the queen, the stepmother can't do anything for the time being, but this reason can't be used forever. It's no secret that he used to be the servant of the princess's mansion. Even if the queen didn't confer him a title after ascending the throne, No one dared to question that he was the queen's person. The stepmother didn't dare to take the risk. Where's brother Yun? Chu Suans turned to look at Yunhan. Have you married yet? I have an unmarried wife at home, and we haven't held a wedding ceremony yet. Yunhan frowned slightly. Because of the Julian Chen case, I was worried about getting her into trouble, so I wanted to put the marriage on hold for a while, but now was who has cleared out corrupt officials and profiteers, and the lives of tea farmers have improved greatly. After the new year and the beginning of spring, I'll take a leave and go back to get married, and bring my mother and wife over. Chu Suan smiled and said, this is good, my mother and wife are by my side, so I don't have to worry about them. $window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix.